I'm sitting in a Motel 6 off I-71, the neon sign buzzing like a dying insect outside my window. The air smells of stale cigarettes and industrial-grade lemon cleaner, a sharp contrast to the Joe Malone English pear and freesia candles that usually scent my five-bedroom home in the suburbs of Columbus. I'm 44 years old. I'm a senior VP of logistics. I've spent 20 years optimizing supply chains, ensuring every moving part of a multi-million-dollar machine arrives exactly where it's supposed to be at exactly the right time. But I missed the breakdown in my own living room. My wife, Elena, and I were the success story. We met at Ohio State, married at 24, and built a life that looked like a Pinterest board for the American dream. We had the colonial-style house with the wraparound porch, two beautiful children, Sarah, who's 15 and has my stubborn streak, and Leo, who's 12 and has his mother's artistic soul. We had the 401ks, the Vanguard brokerage accounts, the yearly trips to Hilton Head, and the standing Sunday brunch with our chosen family. That family included David. David has been my best friend since the third grade. He was the best man at my wedding. He's the godfather to my kids. He's a high-powered corporate attorney, the kind of guy who can charm a judge and a bartender in the same breath. For years, I thanked my lucky stars that my wife and my best friend got along so well. They'd spend hours talking about architecture or wine while I played with the kids or grilled steaks on the patio. I was a fool. A happy, hard-working, provider mindset fool. The gut feeling didn't hit me like a lightning bolt. It was a slow poisoning. It started 3 months ago, just after Thanksgiving. I noticed Elena's phone was suddenly an extension of her hand. We'd be sitting in bed, the glow of the television reflecting in her eyes, but her thumbs were moving. If I leaned over to kiss her, the screen went black. If I asked who it was always just a client or the PTA group chat. Then there were the transactions. As the VP of logistics, I live in the data. I noticed small, odd discrepancies in our joint account. A $200 charge at a boutique hotel in downtown Cincinnati when she was supposed to be at a design conference in Chicago. A $400 charge at a high-end lingerie shop, but I hadn't seen a single lace scrap in our bedroom. The moment it all shattered was a Tuesday. I had come home early because a shipment of components had been delayed at the port, and there was nothing more I could do from the office. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Elena's car was in the driveway, but she wasn't in the kitchen. I walked upstairs, my footsteps muffled by the thick Berber carpet I'd paid $12,000 for last summer. I heard her laughing. It was a sound I hadn't heard in months, a deep, genuine belly laugh. I pushed the bedroom door an inch. She was sitting on our bed, her back to me, wearing a robe I didn't recognize. She was on a FaceTime call. I know, she was saying, her voice a sultry purr that made my skin crawl. Mark is so predictable. He'll be at the office until 7. He thinks I'm working on the Miller Project. He has no idea that the Miller Project is currently taking a shower in a Hilton suite waiting for me. The voice on the other end responded. It was a voice I'd heard every week for 30 years. David. Tell the big guy I said hi, David's voice crackled through the speaker, dripping with a condescending smugness. And tell him his 401k is looking very healthy. I checked the projections for the investment we're moving. He's literally funding our retirement, Elle. He's the most efficient ATM I've ever met. I stood there, frozen. The air left my lungs. My heart didn't break. It felt like it was being compressed in a hydraulic press. They weren't just sleeping together. They were stealing from me. They were planning a life together using the money I'd spent 60-hour weeks earning. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I walked out of the house, got into my Audi, and drove until I hit this motel. I'm staring at the ceiling now, the betrayal tasting like copper in my mouth.
They think I'm predictable. They think I'm an ATM. They're about to find out what happens when the guy who runs the logistics decides to shut down the supply line. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since that Tuesday. I haven't confronted Elena. I've become a ghost in my own life. I go to work, I come home, I kiss her on the cheek, and I pretend I don't feel like I'm touching a corpse. I've spent every waking second outside of work becoming the private investigator they never saw coming. But I wasn't alone. I realized if David was doing this to me, he was doing it to his wife, Claire. Claire is a pediatric nurse, the kindest, most selfless woman I know. She's the person who brings soup when you're sick and remembers everyone's birthday. I reached out to her under the guise of planning a surprise anniversary party for Elena. We met at a nondescript Starbucks 30 miles away from our suburb. When I sat down across from her, she looked tired. Not just long shift tired, but soul weary. I didn't ease into it. I laid a folder on the table. "Claire," I said, my voice cracking for the first time, "David and Elena are having an affair, and I think they're embezzling from our families." She didn't cry, she didn't gasp, she just closed her eyes and let out a long, shaky breath. "I knew it," she whispered. "I thought I was going crazy, Mark. The late nights, the legal retreats that never had a brochure, the way he stopped looking at me. But I didn't know about the money." We spent the next 4 hours comparing notes. It was worse than I thought. David, using his position as our trusted family attorney, had helped Elena set up a shell LLC for her interior design business. I had been funneling money into it for tax purposes, thinking I was helping her career. In reality, that money was being moved into a private offshore account in the Cayman Islands. But Claire had the smoking gun. She had found a hidden ledger in David's home office. David wasn't just planning to leave with Elena. He had been skimming off the top of several of his clients' accounts, including a trust fund I had set up for Sarah and Leo's college. Over $150,000 was gone. "He thinks he's the smartest man in the room," Claire said, her eyes turning from watery blue to a cold, hard flint. "But I've been taking photos of everything for a month." We became a team, 2 broken people bonded by a shared destruction. We met in parking lots and diner booths. We shared a Google Drive folder that grew into a mountain of evidence. GPS logs, incriminating texts Claire retrieved from David's synced iPad, and bank statements that told the story of a 2-year betrayal. I watched them during our family dinners. I sat across from David, drinking the expensive scotch he bought with my money, and watched him laugh at my jokes. I watched Elena lean her head on my shoulder while she texted him under the table. I felt a cold, calculated rage begin to replace the heartbreak. The plan was formed. We weren't going to a divorce lawyer first. We were going for the throat. Christmas was approaching. In our circle, the annual Smith-Vance Christmas Gala was the event of the year. My house, 50 guests, the cream of local society, David's law partners, and our families. It was the perfect stage. Claire and I spent the week before Christmas coordinating with a high-stakes divorce attorney and a forensic accountant. We had the filings ready, we had the subpoenas served, but with a delay so they wouldn't hit until the morning after the party. I remember lying in bed next to Elena on December 23rd. She reached out to touch my arm, and I had to visualize myself as a block of ice so I wouldn't flinch. "You're so quiet lately, Mark," she whispered. "Is work okay?" "Work is fine, Elle," I said, staring into the darkness. "I'm just focused on the end of the year, making sure everything is where it needs to be. You know me. I like to make sure the accounts are balanced." "You're such a good provider," she said, kissing my shoulder. I wanted to vomit, but instead I smiled. "I'm going to give you a Christmas you'll never forget." Update 2. The night of the gala was freezing. A light dusting of snow covered the lawn, illuminated by thousands of white fairy lights I'd spent 3 days hanging. Inside, the house was a masterpiece of Elena's design. Red ribbons, the scent of pine, a catering team circulating with Wagyu sliders and champagne. David was there, looking dashing in a tailored tuxedo. He clapped me on the back, the smell of his expensive cologne filling my space. "Another year, Mark. You really outdid yourself this time. This house, it's a monument to your hard work." "It really is, David," I replied, holding my sparkling cider. I stayed sober. I needed every neuron firing. At 9 p.m., the main event usually occurred, a toast and a slideshow of the year's memories. The guests gathered in the grand foyer, where a massive 85-inch screen was mounted above the fireplace. "Everyone, if I could have your attention," I called out. The room went quiet. I saw Claire standing near the back, her face a mask of calm. She caught my eye and gave a slight nod. Elena stood by my side,